Hey guys, and welcome to Dan-gler's Sea Fishing. Tonight I'm fishing Shanklin. Now let's get fishing.
Daddy's going fishing.
Not again.
Got a new rod and I got some new line. Got a boat, it's just about time to head on out to my favorite spot. It's just about fishing time. Bee bye, bicky bye, bicky bye, bo, bicky bye, bicky bye, bicky boo. Bee bye, bicky bye, bicky bye, bo, bicky bye, bicky bye, bicky boo.
So, you might notice I've already got a rod out. Reason for that is because I've got down here nice and early to get here at a low tide, and I found a spot that has a little gully running through it, and then it's got a kelp bed and some rocks, and it's sort of sat in between with this lovely gully in the middle. And just on that flooding tide, it just has bass written all over it. So what I've done is I've whacked a really big bait out on some 4-0s, and I've just pinged it out there just to see whether we can find a bass. Once the sun starts to go down and we get pushed up the beach a little bit more, I am expecting us to get fishing a little bit more on the grounds that I'm stood on at the moment, which, as you can probably see, is sand. But with these areas that are proper fish holding areas, I am expecting it to bring some fish into the area where we are. What we're going to aim for tonight is to try and look for something that isn't a dogfish. I mean, we will probably still find a few dogfish, but there has been a good number of rays caught in the last couple of days, so I am hoping maybe there might be a chance of a ray. Could be a good chance of a bass, but we'll have to see what's out there. With the kelp beds, I'll show you a little bit more about what I saw when I came down here, and I'll show you that now. So where it's low water at the moment, it gives me a good opportunity to scan the seabed and see what it looks like at the low tide. Got a bit of rough ground here, but what's really good for us is if you can just see out there, that is kelp, and that will hold a lot of fish. So I'm expecting that to produce quite well later. That should produce us some nice fish, and I'm going to chuck one nice and short in here and see if we can find a bass early on. So if only I had a spinning rod with me, spinning in here would probably produce pretty well, but we're going to chuck a big bait out there and see what we can find anyway. But just talking about the kelp, this is the stuff we're talking about. So it's long sort of stringy seaweed that stands nice and tall, and the fish can swim in and out of it. They can ambush their bait on it. So the gullies we've got here, they're different to what are further down the beach. So down the beach further, there's gullies, but they run coming away from the beach, so they go out. So they're sort of coming in and out with the tide, just long, thin gullies. These ones here, they run parallel to the beach. The reason I sort of like that a little bit more is what I think is the food will get stuck in the gullies more, which is what's going to bring more fish into this area. So what will happen is as the waves come over, they come over, and then the bait will sort of fall in behind these little gullies, and that should hold lots of fish, and we should get lots of fish patrolling up and down in these little areas. Well, that's the theory anyway. Doesn't necessarily mean that we will end up catching them, but I like to analyze the area that we're fishing as best I can and work on the knowledge that we've got on how we can try and look for areas that are holding fish. So the thing with fishing areas like this is you do have to expect tackle loss. They can be quite high, so we need to gear our equipment to match that. So let's have a look at the equipment I'm using today. So today I've got my pair of Any Fish Anywhere 6 and bait Mark II multiply 15-foot rods, and I've got them matched up with a pair of Pen Mag 525s, and I'm using the Achios Night line with 25 pound on there and a 70 pound shock leader. If I do have trouble with the mono, keep breaking and I keep losing gear out there, what I will do is I will switch over to using my Slosh 20s and I'll be using my 50-pound braid. So you will notice I'm not paying much attention to the rod that is out there. The reason that I'm not paying much attention to it is I've got it on a ratchet. The reason I've done that is because it is so close and because bass do hit so hard, is it's easier to have it on a ratchet and then strike it rather than me having it set and then it causing the rod to pull back over and then I'd get into all sorts of difficulty. It does mean as well that I've got that luxury of being able to set up the other rod casually because I can audibly hear if there is a fish on that rod. The thing that is currently going against us for the bass tonight is the fact that it is very flat calm. There's very little amount of waves, very little amount of movement. But if that big bass is sat in that kelp or coming into that area to feed like they normally would, which I would expect around here, that could sort of still produce a fish. Just because it isn't rough doesn't mean that we won't get them, but it does mean that there's a slightly lower chance. So it is a little bit breezy down here. It's not too bad, it's just the odd gust every now and then. But because we're further out on the beach at the moment, we are feeling that wind come across us a little bit. But as I push back up towards the beach, I am expecting the cliffs that are there to give us a bit more shelter, so that should die down. I'm not sure if it's picking it up much on the mic, but if it is, it will die down as we move further in, hopefully. So if you can see on the water, just in this area here, we know that this is a rocky area that's got those little grooves coming across it. And can you see how it's gone like a flat, darker, lighter colour on those areas? So to me, that says that there is another one out here, which I do know because I saw the kelp growing on it earlier. There's also another one out here and then another one that runs all the way along there. So when we're casting out, we probably want to pop them around here to avoid getting into too much trouble. But where it's surrounded by all these little areas that should hold lots of fish later on, that will help us to try and hopefully find some nice fish tonight. But it's always worth just noting what is going on with the water, particularly as it's coming in, because that just gives you an idea of the ground that you're fishing in. So we're probably going to move soon back a little bit with the tide now that it's just starting to push up. And once I start dropping back, that's when I'll start moving into setting up my other rod and getting some other baits out, because I want to be landing about here. I don't want to go too far out there, it looks quite snaggy. And I think I'll probably get into more trouble, but I want to be fishing in this area sort of just in front of me, sort of at the moment about 30 odd yards out. So where we're going to start fishing soon, let's have a look at the baits we've got for tonight. So I've got some frozen black lug that I've been defrosting nicely. Then I've got some giant squid. I've got some lovely anchovies there. I've got a couple of joey mackerels, and then I've got some squid and black lug bombs that I made up earlier this year. So let's talk about the rigs that we've got going on tonight. One of the rigs I've got out there at the moment is just a pulley pennel, size 4.0s on there, and that has half a joey mackerel on it at the moment, just to see if we can find a bass. So one of the rigs I'm going to send out is just a flapper rig. It's got very small size 4 hooks on there. Because we're fishing in the sand, I think there might be a chance of something flat coming in, like possibly a sole or a plaice or something. So I'll try and get this out fairly soon with some worm baits on there. One of them is a pop-up. The reason I've mainly got this out there is to try and pick up a couple of pout that I can use later on for some congers, and to try and fill it and find an undulate. They are quite partial to a pout. So the other rigs I'm going to use tonight are pulley pennels. This one here, I've got 300-pound braid on it, and then I've got 3/0 hooks on there. Looking for a conger with that one. Back over where the old pier is, there is some really good congers that come in off there. I'm hoping they might come out this way looking for food, but out here we might just have a little bit more of a better chance of not snagging up and losing all of our gear. So with our black lug, I've just taken one black lug out. I've just split it into two. I've just chopped the tops and the tails off and then split it in half. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whack them on them small hooks. I'm just going to plonk this out and then start walking backwards. What I am going to do is I am going to bring in that big mackerel bait before I start walking back, because it's in behind those rocks. It's easier for me to get it out here than to try and struggle later. We're playing a bit of sea chicken at the moment to see how long I can leave it before I pull it in and then the sea ends up drowning me. Anyway, let's get moving. Really could do with just going all the way back to the beach, but that means that my line will be miles back and then it will sink into the surf and I'll end up with weed everywhere. Right, so we best get a second bait out there as well now. So just for ease of setup, I've just popped that squid and black lug bombs that I'd pre-made before on there, and I've just popped that on the 3/0 with the 300-pound braid. I'm not looking for a conger on it right now, but that will fish for other fish as well. I've finally got 2 rigs set up in the water, and I think I'm probably going to have to move again in a minute. But we're not too far away from being back onto the main part of the beach. It does go out quite a way here, but not too bad that it's not an area we can't fish. Beautiful spring evenings. It's been about 17 degrees today, which is absolutely gorgeous and very welcome from all that horrible grey, cold, miserable weather we had during the winter. One thing that this nicer weather will do is it will start warming up those waters, and once those waters start to warm to a point, we suddenly get all the crabs start peeling, and that's when we start finding them smoothhounds. So I think we're probably only a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. If this nice weather does continue for a good amount of days, I reckon we're probably only about a week or so before some decent smoothhounds actually start showing up. And we're probably only about 3 or 4 weeks until main sort of the run of smoothhounds really starts to arrive. The other thing that does arrive with the improving weather is you do get a lot more bass coming back into these waters, and you also get the bream arriving. So that does mean we should get some better fishing. I think we better move. Water's coming in behind us. So just looking around on the beach, obviously this is fairly fresh, this. Because I can actually still see that it's got a bit of bait on it. But found this at the low water mark just at the front of the beach here. I'd imagine someone was fishing here earlier today, has lost this, but I'm just going to chop all of this up and throw it in the bin, just so that no fish get caught up in it, or any dogs or anything. So we've got to do our bit and take that back. And for me, I get a few leads out of it. This is that horrible weed. It's that one that just sort of clotheslines all up your line, and just is a nightmare to get off, and it makes your line really heavy. But I'm hoping it's just while this tide is pushing in, we're just getting it. Probably shouldn't have left it here where I'm going to fish later, because I'll just end up snagged in it. Well guys, we're up on the beach now. We're set up and it is just starting to the sun to go down, so hopefully the fish should start coming on fairly soonish. I'm hoping that dusk will set quite quickly, and then that will bring the fish on the feed, and we'll start getting into a few fish. We're almost up to the top of the beach now. There's a little section that comes up just before, but this is going to give us plenty of time to be able to settle in. That tide's got to come up a long way to get up to this point. So it gives us quite a while here, and then we'll probably move back up to the proper beach further up there, probably in an hour or so. So with this venue, it can get a bit weedy just in the first sort of 5-10 yards. So what I like to do is just while that tide's pushing in and we do have a bit of that weed around, is just keep the tips nice and high. I've got my 15-foot rods, which is keeping it nice and high as well. And that's just going to stop the line just dipping into the waves there and just picking up all that weed, which is just going to make our tips nod. So our first proper bait that we're sending out tonight is a whole anchovy that's been whipped up and bound together. That's on a 3/0 up and over drop down. So links up at the top on the rig clip with the little holder on there, and then just goes down to the Gemini splashdown, and then once that unclips, that's just going to drop down. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it right out, and hopefully we can see if there's an ungulate or something that wants to try and pick this up. That almost looked like there was a little bite on the green one. Definitely looks like there's something. Having a go at this one. I think we might have a dogfish here. Although it feels like there's nothing on there. Something going on there, but not a fish. Possibly a crab. So we've got some pretty big baits out there, so just making sure that my drag is set nicely, because if we do get a big fish, we just don't want to get into trouble with the line being too tight and us pulling the hook straight out of its mouth, or us snagging up and breaking. So we're trying and keep that on there so that that fish keeps that hook in its mouth if we do get a big fish come along. So just prepping our next bait. So I've got end of an anchovy, just chopped the tail off, and then I've just chopped it about halfway down the body. And then I've got the extra large English squid, the ones that are about this long. And I've just taken a piece. You can see how thick that flesh is, but I'm just going to whip that up around it, just making sure that the flesh is exposed either side so that we can get loads of scent coming out of that. I'm just going to whip that up, pop in the pennel hook in the bottom here, and then just the octopus beak in the top there. So the reports from this venue recently haven't really been great. There's not been a huge amount caught, not particularly this week. But with today, it's been very sunny. It's been baking that sand. Hopefully that'll bring maybe some rays or something out onto the sand later. But as with fishing, you know, it doesn't fish the same on every tide. It can change very rapidly. And if you don't get out here and try, you never know. So fingers crossed it'll be something slightly different tonight. So do you ever get that thing where you chuck big baits out and you think, right, I'm gonna leave them big baits out there, you know, going for some big fish. And then you end up sort of sat on your hands and twiddling your thumbs a bit, and you're like, could just whack out something. I'm fighting that urge at the moment to whack out either something small or another fresh pennel. But I'm gonna leave them a little bit longer. Got half a joey on one, and then got a whole anchovy on the other at the moment. So they are big baits. There's not been a lot of crab activity down here recently, so although I have heard reports that they are starting to turn up. Well guys, what can I say apart from it's really, really slow. I did try the scratching rig again for a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be getting any interest. So I've just gone back to my bigger baits, and I'm just going to send pennels and up and over drop downs for the rest of the night, I think. I'm not fishing too late tonight, but I've still got a couple of hours, I think. Yeah, at least another hour. So we'll carry on, keep sending some bigger baits out, see what we can find. So I did say when I started this channel that I was going to post the bad ones along with the good ones, because that is fishing. And tonight is definitely looking like one of them bad ones. We've probably got about half an hour left. Between me and Neil, we've had no fish at all. He's had the odd bite. I don't think I've really even had a bite so far tonight. But you never know, fingers crossed we might get something in this last half an hour. Anyway, the celebratory chocolate on a bad session becomes a commiseration chocolate. And I'm feeling a bit because the fishing has been terrible. So I'm going to treat myself to a commiseration chocolate now. So one of the last baits I'm going to send out is one of the giant squid heads and the guts there. So I've just got the bottom hook sticking out of the head area that's been whipped up, and then I've just got a circle just put into the guts at the top there. We're going to send this one out, and then I'm going to send another big bait out on the other one. Just see if we can find anything, see if we can turn this session around. But it has been probably the quietest session I have had since last time I fished Shanklin and blanked. That isn't the last time I fished here, but last time I blanked here. Right, last baits are out. Fingers crossed we might find something. But if we don't, we don't. Can't win them all. Got to take the rough with the smooth. Hopefully smooth hounds, which hopefully we should see soon. But we had an alright session on our last video. And as I said, I wanted to make sure that I put up the sessions that I have that aren't good, to just show that, you know, you can't win them all. Not every session goes well. The best anglers that are around, they do have bad sessions. I'm not saying I'm the best angler around, I'm just saying that, you know, the best anglers around do have bad sessions. They just you don't hear about them. So I wanted to make sure that with my channel that I do put up when I have a bad session, because they do happen every now and then. But we can try and learn from them. I don't think we've really learned anything tonight, because it's just not really turned on at all. Well, just as me and Neil were just talking about how rubbish it's been, he's just managed to pull in probably the smallest dogfish you're ever going to see, but he has managed to find a fish. So maybe we could be lucky and see one before we finish tonight. I will say though, we're probably not going to catch a dogfish on the baits that are out there. I've got some pretty massive baits out there at the moment. Well guys, let's talk the positives from tonight. We got out fishing, that's always a positive. And we found a few rigs on the beach, so a couple of extra weights, that's a positive. And we didn't lose any gear. Negatives, we didn't even see a bite or a fish. But, you know, as I said, that is fishing. And rough and smooth. Let's hope for more smooth next time. Anyway, until the next video, I'll see you then.